What would you do if someone planted a bomb under the church where your granddaughter learned to pray? Not a threat, not a warning scrawled on a wall. An actual bomb. Dynamite wired to a clock, stuffed inside a canvas bag, wedged beneath the basement stairs of a church where 40 children sat every Sunday morning, singing hymns and drawing crayon pictures of angels. Your granddaughter, 6 years old, sitting in the third row. And you find out the police sergeant assigned to protect that neighborhood didn't just fail to stop it. He drew the floor plan. He told them which door was unlocked on Saturday nights and exactly what time Sunday school started. He handed them your granddaughter's life on a blueprint and took $200 for it. Now here's the question this video is going to answer. Bumpy Johnson didn't kill that sergeant, didn't beat him, didn't drag him through the streets. He did something far worse. He made the sergeant sit in his own patrol car, pick up his own police radio, key the mic, and confess everything to every officer on the 28th precinct frequency, live, his own voice, his own words, his own destruction. How do you make a man with a badge and a gun destroy himself willingly? That's the story nobody ever told until now. If you're watching this, drop a like and tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. This story is about to change the way you think about power forever. October 1965. Harlem was a tinderbox. Malcolm X had been assassinated at the Audubon Ballroom 2 months earlier. The Watts riots had burned for 6 days in August. The Civil Rights Act had passed the year before, but in Harlem, the law on paper and the law on the street spoke different languages. Bumpy Johnson had been out of Alcatraz for 2 years. 7 years behind those walls, and when he walked back into Harlem in 1963, the kingdom head left was barely recognizable. The Genovese family had flooded his streets with heroin. Politicians' head once owned now answered to Italian money. The NYPD's 28th precinct had become a collection agency for whoever paid the most. But Bumpy was 60 now, and something had shifted inside those prison walls. He still had the network, the barbers who heard everything, the shoe-shine boys who watched everything, the cleaning women who worked in places where powerful men forgot to whisper. But what drove him now wasn't territory. It was Margaret. Margaret Johnson was 6 years old. Technically Bumpy's granddaughter, the daughter of his troubled child Elise, who couldn't care for her. But Bumpy and his wife Mame had raised Margaret since infancy. She was their daughter in every way that mattered. He enrolled her in Harlem's best private school, hired a chauffeur to drive her, threw birthday parties with pony rides. He taught her math by letting her count his gambling profits at the kitchen table while Mame shook her head and smiled. Margaret was his soft spot, the one weakness every person in Harlem knew about. Touch Bumpy's business, head negotiate. Touch his reputation, head fight. Touch Margaret, and you were talking to a different man entirely, a man without rules, without limits, without the cold calculation that had kept him alive for 5 decades. Margaret made Bumpy human, and that terrified him more than any gun ever pointed at his chest. Every morning, Bumpy walked Margaret to the front door before the chauffeur arrived. Head kneel down, adjust her coat collar, check that her shoes were tied. Tell me the plan, baby girl. School, then library, then home. That's my girl. Head watch the car pull away, standing on the sidewalk until it turned the corner. Mame would find him there sometimes, still watching an empty street. She's fine, Ellsworth. I know. I just like to make sure. Every Sunday morning, Mame took Margaret to the Church of the Master on Morningside Avenue. It wasn't the biggest church in Harlem, not like Abyssinian Baptist where Reverend Powell had preached to thousands. But it was Mame's church. She'd attended since 1949, the year after she married Bumpy. She sang alto in the choir, organized the coat drive every November, taught a women's Bible study on Wednesday evenings. She knew every family in those pews, knew which children had been sick, which mothers were struggling, which fathers had lost work. Margaret attended Sunday school in the basement. A room with yellow walls, small wooden chairs, a chalkboard with Bible verses in Sister Bernice Williams' careful hand, and a painting of Jesus surrounded by children of every color. 40 children, ages 5 through 10. Margaret sat in the third row because Mame insisted, close enough to pay attention, far enough to not be called on every question. Her favorite part was drawing time. While other children colored inside the lines of printed Bible scenes, Margaret drew her own. Angels with brown skin and enormous wings, flying over buildings that looked like the brownstones on Edgecombe Avenue. This was the church, these were the children. And in the Bronx, in a rented garage on a dead-end street, 4 men were building a bomb meant to blow them apart. The Klan had never left New York. People think of the KKK as a Southern affliction, but the Klan operated cells in every northern city where black families migrated during the Great Migration. They didn't march openly up north. They wore suits to work, sat on school boards, coached Little League, and on certain nights in back rooms of bars, they planned violence with the calm of men planning fishing trips. In the Bronx, a cell calling themselves the Defenders of Christian Heritage had been active since 1961. Their leader, Gerald Whitmore, was a 54-year-old electrician. Klan since he was 19, had participated in 2 church arsons in Virginia before moving north. By 1965, his cell had firebombed a black-owned laundromat, burned a cross in Yonkers, and beaten 3 black teenagers at a bus stop. No arrests, no investigations, just incident reports filed under vandalism. Now Whitmore wanted something bigger, a real bomb. Dynamite inside a church. Time to go off during a service. And he had help from inside the NYPD. Sergeant Thomas Gallagher was 41, 18 years on the force, assigned to the 28th Precinct, the kind of cop internal affairs never investigated because he walked the line with surgical precision. He took money, but never enough to trigger an audit, looked the other way, but never so obviously that a partner could testify. He maintained relationships with criminals on both sides of the color line, the way a gardener maintains poisonous plants, carefully, with gloves, knowing that one wrong move meant getting stung. Gallagher had a wife, Patricia, and 2 sons in Catholic school in Queens. He drove a Buick that was slightly too nice for a sergeant's salary, but not nice enough to raise eyebrows. He ate breakfast every Tuesday at the same diner in Washington Heights, same booth, same order. Ham and eggs, black coffee. It was at that booth every Tuesday that an envelope appeared, slid across the table by a man whose name Gallagher never asked. Right to $300, depending on the month. Always cash, always clean. Gallagher's connection to Whitmore went back 3 years. In 1962, Whitmore had been arrested for disorderly conduct at a rally in the Bronx. Gallagher, working a special detail, processed the booking. During the paperwork, Whitmore mentioned he had friends who appreciated officers who understood the natural order of things. Gallagher understood. A week later, the first envelope arrived. Over 3 years, Gallagher provided small favors. Patrol schedules for black neighborhoods, names of informants, shift rotations. Nothing that would trigger an investigation, but everything a man planning violence would need. In September 1965, Whitmore asked for something new. The layout of a church in Harlem, not just the sanctuary, the basement, the boiler room, the structural supports, which exterior doors were unlocked, when the most children would be inside. Gallagher should have stopped, should have recognized he was crossing from corruption into conspiracy to commit mass murder, but had been walking toward this line for 3 years, and each step had been so small that the final step didn't feel different from the first. That's how it works. That's how ordinary men become accessories to monsters. Not in one leap, but in 1,000 tiny steps, each one barely noticeable until you look back and realize you can't see where you started. He chose the Church of the Master. He knew the neighborhood. He knew the side entrance was unlocked after the Saturday AA meeting. He knew Sunday school held 40 children at 9:30 a.m. And he knew Bumpy Johnson's wife and granddaughter attended. He drew the floor plan on notebook paper, handed it to Whitmore, collected $200, went home, slept. Wednesday, October 6, 1965, 11:42 p.m. The streets around Morningside Avenue were quiet. A few lights in apartment windows. A dog barking 3 blocks away. The kind of Harlem night where the city seems to hold its breath. A green Ford panel van turned into the alley behind the Church of the Master. Headlights off, engine barely above idle. 2 men got out. Roy Danvers, 38, a plumber by trade who understood pipes, pressure, and how buildings were put together. Carl Beckworth, 29, simply big and did what he was told. Danvers carried a canvas bag. Inside, 12 sticks of dynamite stolen from a construction site in Westchester 3 weeks earlier. A battery-operated timer, a standard alarm clock modified by Whitmore, who'd learned demolition wiring from a manual head ordered through the mail, and 50 feet of detonation cord. The side door was unlocked, just as Gallagher's floor plan promised. Danvers tested the handle, felt it give, looked at Beckworth, smiled. They moved through the darkened church with flashlights taped to show narrow beams, past the sanctuary with its rows of empty pews, past the choir loft where Mame Johnson sang every Sunday, down the basement stairs, each step creaking under Beckworth's weight. The basement smelled like chalk dust and crayons, small chairs arranged in rows, a chalkboard with last Sunday's Bible verse still written across it. In the dim flashlight beam, Danvers could see the children's drawings pinned to the walls, stick figures, rainbows, a brown-skinned angel with enormous wings. They found the boiler room. Behind the old furnace, in the space between the concrete wall and the heating pipes, Danvers placed the bomb. He worked methodically, battery connected, timer set for 10:15 a.m. Sunday. Detonation cord looped through the dynamite bundle, checked the connections twice. 10:15 a.m., 45 minutes into Sunday school. The blast would come up through the floor. Maximum casualties. The engineer Whitmore had consulted estimated the explosion would collapse the basement ceiling into the classroom. Danvers stepped back, looked at the device one more time, nodded, "Let's go." They were out by 11:58 p.m., back in the van, gone into the October night. Behind them, in the darkness of that boiler room, 12 sticks of dynamite sat beneath a children's Sunday school classroom, and a clock was ticking towards Sunday morning. Thursday morning, 7:15 a.m. Roosevelt Simmons, 62, the church custodian for 27 years, went into the boiler room for his routine Thursday furnace check. He found something that didn't belong. He called Bumpy. "Mr. Johnson, I need you to send someone right now. There's something in the boiler room behind the furnace. Wires, a clock. It shouldn't be here." Bumpy's blood went cold. His mind went to one place. Sunday morning. Margaret in the third row, Mame in the choir. "Don't touch it, Roosevelt. Lock the building. Sending my people." Illinois Gordon arrived in 16 minutes. He looked at the device, called Bumpy, boss. 12 sticks of dynamite, battery timer. Set for Sunday, 10:15 a.m. Bumpy closed his eyes for 3 seconds. When he opened them, his voice was ice. "Get Calvin Moore. Disarm it. Don't call the police. Bring every piece to my office. And find out how they got inside that church." Within 2 hours, Calvin Moore, a Korean War veteran who'd handled demolition, carefully disarmed the device, cut the detonation cord, disconnected the battery, removed the timer. The bomb was on Bumpy's desk by noon. He stared at those 12 sticks for a long time, then picked up the phone. "Everyone in here. Tonight." Thursday night, Bumpy's office above Small's Paradise. 8 men. The inner circle. The components sat on the desk. Bumpy spoke quietly. "Someone planted a bomb in the Church of the Master, set to go off Sunday morning during Sunday school. 40 children. My granddaughter, my wife." He looked at Whispers Monroe, his information man. "Find me everything, where the dynamite came from, who's been buying detonation cord, who's been asking about churches. Start with construction sites in Westchester." Then he held up the floor plan found in the boiler room, pencil sketch on notebook paper, accurate. "Whoever drew this had been inside the building. This means someone on the inside, not inside the church, inside the system. A cop. Find me who drew this, who planted the bomb, who paid for it, and whoever in the NYPD helped them. Names by Saturday night." Marcus Cole spoke. "What about the police?" "We don't," Bumpy said. "We report this. The police control the investigation. If a cop is involved, every file gets lost, every witness forgets. We handle this ourselves. Then we make sure the whole city knows." Whispers Monroe worked 40 straight hours. The dynamite traced to a construction site in White Plains. 14 sticks stolen 3 weeks earlier. The site foreman remembered a green Ford van with Connecticut plates. The canvas bag was military surplus, tracked to an Army-Navy store in Yankers. The owner remembered the buyer, white, mid-50s, glasses, quiet. By Saturday morning, Whispers connected it to the defenders of Christian heritage. Leader, Gerald Whitmore, 54, electrician, Bronx. Matched the Army-Navy store description, but here's what tightened Bumpy's jaw. The NYPD's intelligence file on the defenders was 3 pages thin. No surveillance, no informant notes, no arrests after 1962. Someone had been keeping that file empty. Then the break. Doris Mitchell, a cleaning woman at the 28th Precinct and part of Bumpy's network for 6 years, remembered something. A hand-drawn floor plan of a church in Sergeant Gallagher's wastebasket 2 weeks ago. She hadn't thought anything of it until Whispers asked. Bumpy had his name. Saturday night. The full picture on the table. Whitmore, Danvers, Beckworth, and Sergeant Thomas Gallagher, 28th Precinct, the inside man. Illinois leaned forward. How do you want to handle the Klan? The Klan, we handle the way we handle the Klan. But Gallagher is different. Killing Gallagher makes him a dead cop. The NYPD investigates dead cops. They tear Harlem apart. Every black man becomes a suspect. So what then? We make him confess. Not to us. On his own radio. His own voice. Every officer on the 28th Precinct frequency hears exactly what Sergeant Gallagher did. Illinois stared. How do you make a cop confess on his own radio? Bumpy smiled. That cold, 40-year smile. You take away every option until confession is the only door left open. If this story has you locked in, hit that subscribe button right now. We're about to get to the part nobody believes until they hear it. Monday night, October 11th, 11:30 p.m. Gallagher finished his shift, changed clothes, walked to his car on 128th Street. He was thinking about the $500 envelope head collect tomorrow. He didn't see Illinois step from behind a delivery truck. Didn't see Marcus from the other direction. Didn't hear anything until the chloroform cloth covered his face and the world went dark. Gallagher woke in a chair. Warehouse. Concrete floor. Single bulb. His own handcuffs binding his wrists. Piano on a table between him and Bumpy Johnson. The 12 sticks of dynamite, the timer, the floor plan, and a police radio tuned to the 28th Precinct frequency. Sergeant Gallagher. Do you know who I am? Bumpy Johnson. And you know why you're here. Gallagher looked at the table. His face went the color of old paper. I don't know what don't. Bumpy held up his hand. I know about Whitmore, the defenders, the envelopes at the diner, the floor plan you drew and threw in your wastebasket. He leaned forward. You gave the Klan the layout of a church where 40 children sit every Sunday. You told them which door was unlocked, what time the most kids would be inside. He picked up the timer, and you did it for $200. Bumpy laid out 3 options. His voice never rose above a whisper. Option 1, deny everything. The dynamite, the floor plan with your fingerprints, and witness statements go to the DA, the FBI, and the New York Times simultaneously. You go to prison for conspiracy to commit mass murder of children. You know what they do to men who hurt kids, even in prison. Option 2, play tough. Tell me your boys will come looking. Bumpy's eyes were flat. They won't find you in time. Option 3, he pushed the police radio across the table. You pick up this radio, you key the mic, you tell every officer on the 28th Precinct frequency exactly what you did. Your name, what you provided, who you provided it to. Every word. Gallagher stared at the radio. That's asking me to destroy my own life. Bumpy reached into his coat, pulled out a photograph of Margaret, 6 years old, smiling, crayon angel in front of her, placed it on the table. This is my granddaughter, 3rd row, Sunday school. Right above where your friends put 12 sticks of dynamite. Gallagher couldn't look. Look at her. Aye, you helped men plant a bomb under a room full of children for $200. That's $5 per child. $5. That's what a child's life is worth to you. Silence. So when you tell me Yow'd be destroying your life, understand what you almost destroyed. 40 lives. 40 families. For an envelope at a diner. Gallagher reached for the radio. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold it. Illinois uncuffed him. Every word, Bumpy said. Every detail. Gallagher keyed the mic. The frequency crackled. Across Harlem, officers froze. This is Sergeant Thomas Gallagher. Badge 4417, 28th Precinct. For 3 years, I've been providing intelligence to a Ku Klux Klan cell operating out of the Bronx called the Defenders of Christian Heritage. patrol schedules, informant names, shift rotations, in exchange for cash. Every officer on the frequency stopped what they were doing. In September, I drew a floor plan of the Church of the Master on Morningside Avenue and provided it to the cell's leader, Gerald Whitmore. I identified which door would be unlocked Saturday nights. I knew the group intended to plant an explosive device. I knew 40 children attend Sunday school. I did this for $200. His voice cracked. Resigning effective immediately. The men responsible are Gerald Whitmore, Roy Danvers, and Carl Beckworth, all Bronx residents. He released the button. The radio went silent. Bumpy took the radio. Your car is outside. South. Don't stop until you've left New York. Gallagher stood on legs that barely held him. At the door, he turned. My family should have thought about that before you sold a church full of children for $200. Go, now. The warehouse door closed. An engine started. Gone. Tuesday morning. The recording hit the 28th precinct like a grenade. A night dispatcher had done what dispatchers do. Had recorded everything that came across the frequency. Standard procedure. But when he played back the tape at the end of his shift and heard a sergeant confessing to conspiracy with the Ku Klux Klan, he nearly knocked his coffee off the console. Captain James Rourke was in his office by 6 a.m., listening to the playback. He listened twice, then sat in silence for 3 full minutes. Then he picked up the phone, called Internal Affairs, called the FBI field office in Lower Manhattan, called the commissioner's office. By 8 a.m., the recording had been copied 4 times and was being listened to by men in suits at 4 different locations across the city. By 10 a.m., FBI agents and NYPD Internal Affairs investigators arrived at Gerald Whitmore's home in the Bronx. They found Klan robes folded neatly in the bedroom closet, a second bomb, partially assembled, sitting on a workbench in the garage, and a list, typed on a manual typewriter, of 12 black churches in Harlem and the Bronx with handwritten notes about security vulnerabilities, service schedules, and building layouts. The Church of the Master was circled in red ink. Next to it, in pencil, someone had written, confirmed for October 10th. Whitmore, Danvers, and Beckworth were arrested that day. 8 more members of the defenders within 48 hours. All 11 charged on federal conspiracy and civil rights violations. The case made the front page of every newspaper in New York. NYPD sergeant aided KKK church bomb plot. The Daily News ran. The Amsterdam News headline was simpler. They tried to kill our children. Gallagher was found 3 days later at a motel outside Richmond, Virginia. Head driven south, just as Bumpy told him. Hadn't shaved. Hadn't eaten. S sat in a motel room staring at a television he hadn't turned on. The FBI arrested him on federal conspiracy charges. His own radio confession was entered into evidence at trial. His own words, his own voice, his own undoing. The jury took 4 hours to convict. Gallagher received 15 years. Whitmore received 20. Danvers and Beckworth each got 12. The remaining 8 members received sentences ranging from 5 to 10 years. Not a single one of them ever knew how the plot unraveled. Not a single investigator traced it back to Bumpy Johnson. The official narrative was simple. An anonymous tip had alerted authorities. The sergeant's conscience had broken. Justice was served through proper channels. And Harlem knew different, but Harlem kept its mouth shut, because that's how it worked. That's how it had always worked. The following Sunday, the Church of the Master held a special service. Over 600 people came. Reverend Charles Monroe stood at the pulpit. 4 days ago, a bomb sat beneath this floor, set to destroy this room and every child in it. That bomb was found. That bomb was disarmed. And the men who planted it and the officer who helped them are now facing justice. Someone protected these children when the system failed. Every parent in this room owes that someone a debt that can never be repaid. Bumpy wasn't at the service. He never came to these things. But that evening, Roosevelt Simmons found an envelope on his desk. Inside, $5,000 cash and a note for 27 years of watching over this church. You saved 40 children, Roosevelt. That makes you the most important man in Harlem. No signature. Years later, someone asked Margaret Johnson about growing up as Bumpy's granddaughter. She talked about the pony rides, the chauffeur, The math lessons counting gambling money. When they asked if she ever felt afraid, she paused. Once. I was 6. Something bad almost happened at my church. I found out years later. I asked my grandfather what he did. She smiled. That same tough smile shed later when she shot a mugger from her wheelchair and earned the name Annie Oakley of Harlem. He said, "Baby girl, I didn't have to do anything. I just made a man tell the truth. The truth did all the work." That was Bumpy Johnson. Sometimes the most devastating weapon wasn't violence. It was a police radio and a man's own guilty voice. Remember the Church of the Master. Remember the 40 children who never knew how close they came. Remember Roosevelt Simmons, the custodian who checked the boiler room on a Thursday morning and saved every one of them. And remember that justice doesn't always come from a courtroom or a gun barrel. Sometimes it comes from a frequency nobody expected, in a voice nobody wanted to hear, telling a truth nobody could deny. If this story moved you, if you believe those 40 children deserve to live, hit subscribe, drop a comment. When a cop becomes the criminal, who protects the people? Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because that bomb was real. Those children were real. And the man who stopped it didn't wear a badge. He wore a gray suit and a cold smile, and he made the devil confess in his own words. Harlem remembers. Harlem always remembers.